Welcome again. I am Joel Moskowitz, the Executive Director of the America-Israel Cannabis Association, ICA, one of the sponsors of this event. Scott Greiper is the President and Founder of Viridian Capital Advisors, a New York City-based firm that is the first of its kind solely dedicated to financing emerging growth companies in the legal cannabis sector. He is also the President and Founder of the Secure Strategy Group based in New York and D.C., and is involved in the defense and security sector. The company is involved in the defense and security sector. Scott holds an MBA from Columbia and an undergraduate degree, impressively enough, from the University of Chicago. Recently, his firm was the main sponsor of the Cannabis World Congress in New York. Welcome, Mr. Greiper. How are you?
Thank you so much, Joel. I'm really pleased to be part of this inaugural kickoff event, and particularly pleased to be working with our friends in Israel, having done business in Israel for many years on the Homeland Security side of our practice, and recognizing that Israel is a clear world leader in the research of cannabis and has been for many years. I'm really thrilled to be part of this event.
Great, thank you so much. So tell us, how does a guy with your pedigree, and it's quite impressive, end up getting involved in the cannabis business?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I'll tell you, I had no intention, didn't wake up in the morning one morning and say, hey, I've got to open up the first financial advisory firm in the space. But about a year and a half ago, we got a call from one of our investors that has been investing in our security-related companies and runs a fund that is specifically investing in security-type companies, that he was taking public a security company and investing in one, and he wanted our help. And as I asked him and sort of dug into what it was all about, he told me that they were providing security guards, armored cars, and surveillance systems. And my reaction was, well, that's not particularly interesting. I'm always looking for leading edge technologies, and that's not security guards. And this gentleman's response was, yeah, but they're protecting most of the largest medical cannabis dispensaries in Colorado. And my response was, oh, because I was not expected to hear that. So all of a sudden we had our first engagement for a cannabis company. 3 months later, similar situation, one of our board members called, and he was getting involved with a public cannabis company that was on the licensing and compliance consulting side, and poof, we had 2 clients in a space that I knew about. I didn't understand the dynamic and extent to which the industry was growing. So we spent the better part of 4 months, Joel, researching the space, the cannabis market, speaking to everybody we could, learning everything we could. And it became apparent that we had a role in the market, doing what we do and helping to professionalize and mature these companies, eventually go out and raise capital and do M&A for them. So we really kind of got asked to come into the space and help.
So it's interesting that you bring that up, because obviously this is a recurring theme that's come up in a number of conversations. Fortunately, people like you are in the business, that it gives the opportunity for the general public to see that it's not just Cheech and Chong and Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High that are getting into this business. So tell us a little bit about where Viridian fits in, how anybody right now can turn to a company like Viridian, or needs to turn to a company like Viridian, and tell us how you see the horizon going.
Sure.
Take us through the process of what you do and how you do it.
Sure. Well, I've spent my career and really my passion working with small emerging growth technology companies. That's where the innovation happens in whatever vertical you might be in, whether it's Homeland Security, the internet, or cannabis. Innovation doesn't happen in large companies. It happens at small companies. And that's my passion, to find the best management teams with the most interesting emerging technology and a real business model. And I can help sort of evolve that, professionalize that, help build the right board to bring real governance to the company, help supplement the right team, bringing in a real CFO or a COO, and helping, I would say, mature the business model. So that's what we do. That's our starting point, is really helping to bring an institutional approach to helping to build and scale and finance businesses in the cannabis marketplace. And as you were spot on in your comments, one of the main challenges we think exists in the cannabis space, although it is rapidly improving, is the lack of real seasoned executives, real experienced CEOs, COOs, CFOs that have had experience in starting technology companies and scaling them and financing them and eventually finding an exit opportunity. There is a gap in the market with seasoned executives and board members in this space. And it creates a credibility issue in the investor's mind, who may be intrigued and recognize the investment opportunity in the cannabis marketplace. That's fairly clear. But the risks from a reputational perspective, do I want to come into this market? What will my partners say? What will my limited partners say if I'm running a fund? Maybe what will my wife say? Along with the attendant execution risk from the perspective of finding real management teams with real experience. That's what we do, and that's what I've been doing for many, many years. Not just the Wall Street side of raising capital and doing mergers and acquisitions and uplisting to NASDAQ and all of that, but also having experience helping to bring maturity, credibility, and capability to these companies.
In the Cannabis World Congress that you sponsored in New York in June, you did an interview, and you said that the smart money was in two things: the best management teams in biotech. So you just addressed the management teams, but the industry itself does not have seasoned managers or cannabis-specific managers. How do you navigate that? How do you find the right fit for something like that? And then maybe elaborate a little bit on that biotech that you were mentioning.
So I will say that while there is clearly a need for more professional managers to come in to this sector, by the way, they are. We at Viridian, we're so deeply penetrated, embedded in the market. We're at all the conferences. We travel around the country all the time. We've seen since January of this year a significant and accelerating uptick in the quality of the manager, the executive, the board member, and the investor that is coming into the market. So I just wanted to say that because things are changing. In regard to the biotech, let me answer your question. In regard to how do we find the right managers to back, there is clear and deep domain knowledge in this space. On the grow side, on the infused product side, on the extraction and infusion side, there is decades of folks, Colorado, principally out of California, that have been doing this on a small scale for many, many, many years. So there is real domain knowledge in this space. So when we help our companies bring in the seasoned, experienced management side, we're not trying to bring in managers that necessarily come out of the cannabis space.
Right.
Because many of these companies that are starting up already have that domain knowledge and that domain experience. We're looking for executives that we're pulling in or are already there from other industries that may have come out of biotech, that may have come out of technology in one vertical or another, looking for an opportunity in an emerging technology sector and an emerging technology company. Not looking for folks to be CEOs that have grow experience necessarily. They have to have operating experience. So we're looking to match up that operating experience perhaps out of the cannabis industry with the domain experience inside of the cannabis industry.
All right, so it almost sounds like the cannabis industry is where high tech was, whatever, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and these companies would be started off the idea of written on a napkin by some guy with a lot of knowledge of technology, but not a lot of management. And then ultimately the industry matured, and you were able to pluck CEOs who were also knowledgeable in the product. That may be a couple of years further on the horizon. Is that
well? I would say it's not quite that black and white. There are a number of companies that have brought in CEOs who have been founders that had domain knowledge and also built up successful businesses in and around the grow area, in and around the infused products area. So they are not only bringing domain experience, they're bringing managerial, operational experience. But on the whole, I would say you're correct. There is what we believe is an industrial revolution happening in this industry right now. It starts at the top. It starts with attracting seasoned, experienced technology executives that know how to grow small businesses, all the way up to building the right board and bringing in seasoned board members that can provide that right governance. So it's an evolution, and it's an evolution not only in managerial and operational experience, but in companies that know how to build out the right business model that has margins, pricing, products, technology that are sustainable, that have long-term competitive advantages in the marketplace, that are financeable over time. So there is truly, this is what so excites me about having the perch that Viridian does in this industry at such a nascent stage. Everything that our group has learned over the years of being Wall Street bankers and research analysts and brokers, we're able to bring that experience, that deal experience, to this marketplace. So it's really quite exciting.
So that leads me to another question, which goes back to the comparison to the tech market. In the tech market, say the Twitter model as an example, somebody created a platform, and everybody who knew anything about technology thought, wow, this is a great idea, and they threw money at the idea, but no one had any idea at its concept, at its conception, how they're going to monetize it. And yet it seemed to be able to attract as much money as anyone could throw at it. Are we seeing that in cannabis? Is that the kind of thing where everybody sees a huge market and we're just going to throw money at innovation for cannabis and we'll figure out how to make money later? Or is there a very, very specific, targeted type of investment that Viridian and other investors are looking for?
It's such an interesting question, because, and I'll give you the answer through this. One of the most fascinating aspects or dynamics of the cannabis market to me, unlike the evolution of the internet in the late 90s, the evolution of social media a decade ago, the evolution of the Homeland Security industry after 9/11, is that there is already an embedded market of buyers and product in the cannabis space. In fact, it's estimated that approximately $50 billion worth of cannabis is purchased each year in the U.S. Up until about 7 or 8 years ago, almost all of that was purchased in the black market, meeting your guy on the corner and buying some weed. Last year, about $2.7 billion of that 50 was purchased through the legal market, the states that have legalized production and distribution. So we've got $40+ billion to go. But in answer to your question, we don't need another customer in this industry to drive demand. They already exist. That was not the case in the evolution of the internet market in the late 90s, when nobody knew what a browser was. Somebody had to go out and create the service, and you had to have people like me that bought a browser so they could go online and surf. So very, very unique dynamic. I've not seen it in my career. That an industry that is as nascent and evolving of this already has the demand side of the equation in place.
That's fantastic. So we have the demand, we have it seems the will to try and legalize it. I think one of the missing pieces that it may not be your exact area, but maybe you could shed some light on it, is the regulatory or the protocols. Right now they vary from state to state, but I believe that a couple of months ago there was a meeting of 40 attorneys general in Hawaii, who, including states that don't have any legalized cannabis yet, trying to come up with a regulatory protocol that could be used in all the states. What do you see as the future of the regulatory environment?
Well, it's not really even a matter of what I see; it's a matter of what the facts show.
Well, that's then I should ask it that way. What do the facts show?
Yeah, so the facts are we have 23 states that have legalized medically, another 4 states that have legalized in addition recreationally. There are somewhere between 7 and 13 states that are discussing legislation. Some of those will put it on the ballot for voting in November of 16. So this wave of legalization continues to roll across the country. Ultimately, I think it's the will of the people. I hope to think, despite the politically polluted process of every initiative in this country, that ultimately the people's will does speak. And so taking out the political machinations, the pace of change in this country, whether it's gay marriage or cannabis, is accelerating. And we're seeing that in real time. And I've had conversations with Governor Hickenlooper out of Colorado. I've had conversation with Governor Cuomo in New York about how they came into this market and why they finally agreed to enact legislation, draft guidelines and laws, and in fact put it to the vote of the people to legalize medical marijuana. In both cases, both governors were not in favor of it. They kind of came in kicking and screaming. Certainly Colorado is a more progressive state than New York, had an easier path towards legalization, and certainly enacted much more market-friendly rules than New York did. But I believe that it is the will of the people, and what the polling is showing in cannabis. There's a majority of people, both on the left and the right, that support legalization. I think that will continue.
Yeah, well, I think it was a Republican governor in New Mexico who was one of the first to. He had a libertarian streak. I think it was Governor Johnson that wanted to legalize cannabis, and that was going on for a few years. I like that you said that both governors came in kicking and screaming. Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado admits to it. Governor Cuomo almost seems like he doesn't, but he really did. He seemed most resistant going in there. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of your presentation on Viridian? We have a lot of professionals that have signed on for the conference. A lot of professionals that probably can use the services your firm provides. I know that I'm terribly interested to find out how people that are starting businesses can access the capital markets with the problems between the federal government and the state laws and so on and so forth. And
sure,
so please.
Sure. Joel, can you still see my screen?
Absolutely. You've been on the whole time.
So I'm going to just flip through, and I'll take your lead in terms of pace and going back and forth.
All right.
So,
well, we've got about 5-10 minutes. So go ahead.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
So we in fact are and were the first financial and strategic firm, Wall Street firm, to jump into the space. We are in fact the only firm of our kind to actually have licensed investment bankers, research analysts, and brokers, a full suite of SEC licenses. So we stay in line with the requirements of the SEC and FINRA. That's very important to us. We have a track record of doing what we do. We've built and helped to mature early stage technology companies by helping to supplement and build the right management teams, helping to supplement and build the right boards, the business models, financial forecasts, So we have experience doing this. I've been involved over the last dozen or so years of about $400 million of capital raises for public and private emerging growth companies. So we think we bring the most experience in terms of really understanding the requirements of the cannabis industry at this point in time. We also kicked off about a year ago the Viridian Cannabis Stock Index, which is part of our research and market reports and market intelligence that we provide. The index has had very strong performance, albeit great variability quarter to quarter. As your viewers can see in these bullets, 2013 strong, 14 strong, first quarter of this year very strong, and now second quarter we're down. We saw that same variability in 2014. So this is who we are. We've got tremendous deal experience. We're bringing all of that to the cannabis industry. We have been fortunate, despite the fact that we have no PR person in our firm, to have attracted significant media coverage from the mainstream media, as you see here, and also to the media in the cannabis industry specifically, whether that's Marijuana Business Daily or Cannabis FN or High Times. We have been, I think, an important source for the industry and an advocate for the industry to these media assets. And fortunately, about 4 months ago, Barron's came out with an article where they declared that the Viridian Cannabis Stock Index was in fact the benchmark index for the industry. And that, as you can imagine, was very pleasing for us.
Yes,
Why we
is.
come in, it's what we talked about before, Joel.
Right.
We saw, well, we were asked to come in, but after we did our homework, we saw that there was a lack of true experienced operational expertise, management expertise, scalability, all of that. That's what we do for a living. Many of the public companies in this space do not have the financial controls, the reporting controls that will enable them to not only stay public but attract professional investors. And when you look at the explosion in the number of public companies, you can see here there is a real risk to the investor and a real requirement for us on the part of our investors to choose the best companies to work with and get behind.
That's great. Do you seek to only get involved in innovation and technology, or do you also get involved with big grow operations, things like that?
Yeah, both. You know, we have an investor universe that scales the risk curve.
Great.
Some are looking for the true, startup or early stage companies. Some are looking to play the larger opportunities in real estate or on the growth side. So it really varies. And in fact, in our research, Joel, we've cut up the cannabis industry into 13 different subsectors.
Wow. That's
Security, biotech, infused products, the growth side, the distribution side, the software side. There is such variability in the different business models here, the types of go-to-market strategies, the requirements for capital. You can't look at this industry, we don't believe, as an investor, in a homogeneous, I'm just going to play, the pot boom, because that's a mistake. You've got to take a deep dive. We do that for our investors. And if you log onto our website, viridianca.com, you'll see some of our research there on how we categorize each of these subsectors and really give an understanding to our investors and the investment community at large about the risk profile, the growth profile of each of these subsectors.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask this one question, and we're running out of time, and I don't want to take too much time away from you showing us about your company, but I'm sure that this is pertinent. There's one of the biggest problems that the cannabis industry has is that a lot of the transactions are done in cash because banks won't get involved. Yet you're regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA and so on. Here you have federal regulation, and you're dealing in a business that's technically illegal on the federal level, but legal on the state level. How do you get around that? What's the catch, or is it been relatively easy for you?
Well, I hope I can answer that quickly, Joel, and that we have a little bit of time to go over our perspective on the biotech opportunity and the medical marijuana opportunity, because that is the gist of the conference that you guys have put together. But in regard to your question, the banking issue in the market is really a commercial banking issue.
Right.
It's not necessarily an investment banking issue, and that's where we play. So the issue really is for the dispensary owners. That's really where it hits hardest.
Right.
You've watched the CNN shows where they'll show the dispensary in Breckenridge with the two young owners sitting on a Friday evening collecting $130,000 in cash that's come in for the week and stuffing envelopes because they have to pay their employees in cash and they have to pay their taxes and their phone bill in cash. It's a very specific issue. By the way, it's not illegal for commercial banks to be in this market. The Cole Memorandum, the FinCEN regulations are there to act as guidelines for the commercial banks to come in. It's a reputational risk issue, and it's also an issue of whether the requirements of filling out suspicious activity reports and other things is worth it, considering this market is still relatively small, sub $3 billion for these large commercial banks. So that does not really affect us.
Okay. We'll run over time so we can address the biotech issue. So far, the presentation has been fascinating, and I don't think anybody listening is going to mind if we run a few minutes over. So that's what they're here for.
Okay, so I jump forward, Joel, to our presentation, which does discuss the biotech opportunity. In fact, what you're looking at here is the front cover of a market report that we're writing, which will be the first of its kind on the business and investment opportunity in biotech and cannabis. And if you see on this front page, in fact, this is the front page of our market report, this is not new. You know, on the left side is a piece of papyrus from Egypt several thousand years ago with a prescription for medical marijuana. And then the Kohler's Book of Medicinal Plants, 130 years ago, showing medical marijuana plant. And the American Druggist, the Bible for pharmacies in 1937 with cannabis elixir. And of course, ending with Charlotte from Charlotte's Web, the little girl whose mother fought to give this child a CBD-infused elixir that really helped change her life. And she's become the face of the drive to get medical marijuana legal in the United States. So we're talking about a plant whose medicinal benefits have been known for thousands of years, and yet it's taken now, and over the past 5 years, for the U.S. at least, to start to regulate it and bring in guidelines and bring in a pharmaceutical-like approach to helping the people that need help with this product.
Right.
Many of your viewers may know that one of the largest receptor systems in the human body, maybe the largest, is actually a cannabinoid. Is actually receptive to the cannabis plant naturally. And this has been known for decades. We're now, through the work being done in Israel, the work being done at the University of Mississippi, really starting to develop the genome to understand how the receptors interact with different parts of the plant. But this has already been in us since we've been humans. And again, all this is in our work. I'll just go over this quickly. This is still all anecdotal, but it's sort of been proven at the individual case level about the very significant medicinal benefits of the non-psychotic part of the plant, the non-THC part of the plant, which is called CBD. This is where all of the biotech research is being done. You can go down and see all of the benefits that have been shown, whether it's fighting cancer cell growth or fighting inflammation or fighting seizures, as in the case of Charlotte. There's starting to be true evidence that's coming out of scientific work that's being done, showing the medical benefits of the CBD part of the plant. This is sort of a timeline as to how legislation has rolled out in the United States specifically in terms of medical marijuana legalization. We can come all the way up to today in 2015, We're in 23 states, and as I said earlier, we at Viridian are expecting somewhere between 7 to 13 additional states to put legalization on the ballot in 2016.
Wow.
Very significantly, in June of this year, the U.S. government lifted a provision that has been the primary impediment to universities studying this plant in the U.S. from a medical marijuana perspective. And since the late 60s, there has only been one university in the U.S., a country with the greatest university and R&D and scientific base in the world. And there's been one university that's been allowed to grow and test and perform R&D on the plant. That's been the University of Mississippi. That restriction in some way was lifted in June, where it will no longer be required that a research provider has to go through a government review, a public health service review, in order to get access to the plant to test. So we're starting to see these very nuanced but important changes in legislation at the U.S. government level that are continuing to show that the U.S. is going to, I hope, adopt legalization on a federal level at some point in the future.
Meaning taking, declassifying cannabis as a Schedule I narcotic.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Okay.
So we've identified this as a $30 billion market opportunity. I think if you're looking at 5 to 10 years, it's much larger than that. But certainly, I would say in the near term, a 3-5 year time horizon, this is what companies that are on the biotech side are looking to capitalize. And it's all about bringing in and creating true strains, formulations, and drugs in a capsule that will be very defined in terms of their effect, very defined in terms of their ingredients, very defined like a pharmaceutical product, quality control, integrity, reliability. That's not there yet today, but it's in the process of happening.
Okay, we did run over, but I do have a question on what you said, because it's a recurring theme in many of the talks that we've had, which is the big pharmaceutical companies versus, say, the artisanal growers. The true growers of the cannabis plants will tell you that it's an art. You get the seeds, you get the strains, it's how you grow it, it's the lighting, it's the watering, it's the nutrients to get certain strains. Do we have to worry about...
Joe, can I ask you to hang on 1 second for me, please?
Well, that's interesting. We're running a little over time, but Scott is on vacation in Colorado, of all places.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Talking in my hotel room, so they want to clean the room. So please go ahead.
No, so I was saying, we're back to the questions that I was asking do the growers have anything to worry about, the artisanal growers? Do they have anything to worry about vis-a-vis Big Pharma getting involved in cannabis?
Well, from a grow perspective, just to answer that part of your question specifically, I think the risk to the growers today is not Merck. It's R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris, who have been growing tobacco for obviously a very long time and are experts in creating economies of scale and efficiencies in growing a commodity. Mm-hmm. And in fact, in our last market report, our Q1 report, Q1 2015, we had a small segment dedicated to the effects of the commoditization of cannabis, because that is what's happening. And I think it's actually a very positive thing in the sense that the wholesale price on a per pound basis of cannabis in Colorado is down 50%, 50, over the last year. So the market is regulating itself. But the effect that it's having on the growers is that ultimately size will matter. The size of your grow, the type of technology you bring in, your ability to acquire, meaning have the capital, to acquire advanced technology so you can impact yield, so you can impact quality, so you can reduce your costs in terms of energy and water, etc., are starting to be felt in the marketplace. And so just to finish up, the smaller growers are going to be impacted very negatively by the market dynamics, nothing to do with big pharma as we move forward. Size does matter.
I could go on all day, but we're out of time. So I want to thank you. This is really just very enlightening and very fascinating. The website is viridianca.com. Make sure you access it. And thank you, Scott. And we look forward to seeing you at our next conference.
Joel, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.